Welcome to NTD Evening News. Our top story tonight, a manhunt still underway for the suspect who shot and killed conservative thought leader Charlie Kirk. The FBI released photos of a person of interest and has offered a $100,000 reward for information. Jack Bradley is in Utah with the latest on the investigation. President Trump says he has an indication about why an assassin killed Charlie Kirk. What the president is awarding Kirk posthumously and what he tells the nation on 9/11. Iris Tao at the White House. 24 years on, America looks back at a fateful day, 9/11. Kevin Hogan hears personal accounts of survivors and those affected by the terrorist attacks. And a Brazilian court convicts former President Jair Bolsonaro of being part of a criminal organization. The charges against him and how Bolsonaro can still challenge the verdict.
This is NTD Evening News, live from our global headquarters in New York City. Here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. We have more details of the suspect believed to have killed conservative influencer Charlie Kirk. Authorities are searching for the man who killed Kirk at Utah Valley University yesterday. We go now live to NTD's Jack Bradley on the ground at the site of the shooting. Good evening, Jack. Tell us about the situation on the ground and what more we know about the investigation.
Good evening, Tiffany. Well, yes, there's a large police presence here at Union Valley University. We're about 40 miles south of Salt Lake City here in Orem, Utah. And behind me, you can see the actual site where Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Right there, the tent behind me, you can see all of the banners are still left up, and belongings of the individuals who rushed to safety after the shot was fired are still left behind there. The buildings nearby are where they fled for safety, and many didn't even want to leave the buildings as they feared that they would be shot. Now, the shooter was, according to officials, was on the rooftop about 200 yards away from here, and we know so far that he was wearing all black, and after he fired the shot, he ditched the rifle and into a wooded area and then fled into a nearby neighborhood. Here's more from the FBI.
I can tell you that we have recovered what we believe is the weapon that was used in yesterday's shooting. It is a high-powered bolt-action rifle. That rifle was recovered in a wooded area where the shooter had fled. The FBI laboratory will be analyzing this weapon. Investigators have also collected footwear impression, a palm print, and forearm imprints for analysis.
Now, they're saying that the shooter appeared to blend in with the event, looking about college-aged. And as far as the manhunt as it goes on, the FBI is offering a $100,000 award to any information leading to the arrest of the shooter. And as we speak, FBI Director Kash Patel is on his way to Utah to meet with the large police presence that we have from federal, state, and local law enforcement still searching for this killer. And also, we have Vice President J.D. Vance and First Lady on their way here to Salt Lake City to meet with the family of Charlie Kirk, to express their condolences, and also to get the casket aboard Air Force Two and fly it back to Charlie Kirk's hometown of Phoenix, Arizona. Tiffany.
All right, Jack, thanks for that update. And joining us now is Barak Lurie. He's a trial attorney and author of Atheism Kills series. He's also the host of the Barak Lurie podcast. Barak, thank you so much for joining us. Now, before we get into the latest updates, you were actually on the Charlie Kirk show not that long ago. Talk to us about your reflections on who Charlie Kirk was and his legacy.
Charlie is really, of course, an amazing man, and what his skill was is really understanding what people wanted, and he loved common sense. He just wanted to bring out the best in people. That was just a real delight. I'd known him for many years, and I've seen him grow as a podcaster, as an influencer, what he had done with Turning Point specifically. And we just got to be really good friends. We both had a very strong passion for God, and more importantly, we had a very strong contempt for atheism and godlessness. So that was the bond that we formed together. And as a result, he was very supportive of my first books. And it just took off from there. So I was on his podcast recently to promote my next book, and also to talk about general concepts of God. But he's just been a great force, and everywhere you go with him, he just is an ordinary guy. He would talk very straightforward, and just love to talk about the issues. He could also talk about the basics of life, whether it's the latest sporting game event, his love of tacos, and other food and such. So he was just a real delight. He was a presence that you just always remembered after you left.
And as for the latest updates that we know, right now the shooter is still at large, and the FBI has released photos of a person of interest. There's also a $100,000 reward for any information. What do you see as next in this investigation?
Well, I do believe they will catch the killer. We do know, apparently, that the killer had left some clues about his particular ideologies. Apparently, he hated Charlie Kirk because Charlie Kirk was not a big fan of transgenderism. The ideology of conservatism also was not very pleasing to the shooter. So that much we know. He has some sort of agenda in his mind. We don't think necessarily that he is the wacko that is unkempt and disorganized as you might expect, because he was able to elude police so easily and so quickly. So he was very methodical in his approach, at least to escape. Most of these shooters, they only think about the shooting, not necessarily the escaping. This guy apparently thought very long and hard about escaping. So I suspect that when we do catch him, we'll learn a lot more about him, and we'll realize that there's something very, very deep going on there. And the fact that he was a sharpshooter means that he had a lot of training behind him. And I'd like to see if there's any sort of backup that he had, funding-wise or otherwise. We'll see.
And Barak, when we talk about accountability here, who do you expect authorities to look at to figure out what went wrong?
Well, I mean, the security issue was always there, but it's very hard to give security to somebody who's not the president or not somebody in close circles of the president. So that would be a challenge. In fairness to Charlie and others like him, like Ben Shapiro and so on, they don't necessarily want to think that they have to have bulletproof vests when they go into events like this, or to otherwise have glass protection, for example, bulletproof protection screens. That's something that just wasn't on their radar. You don't expect to have to think about that, but here we are, and I think that's going to be changing the landscape of public speeches of conservatives, at least, when they go out and speak, that they're going to have to think long and hard about the security, especially the more famous they are, the more popular they are, the more that they have to think about security.
And speaking of security, we have seen tighter security for President Trump today. Lawmakers are expressing concern over their own safety. Do you expect any changes to security protocols for outdoor events in light of this tragic incident?
Well, I certainly hope so. When you have a congregation of thousands of people like this, it just it invites a lot of opportunity for mischief. If not for a bullet, maybe for rocks, maybe for other things that can be very violent. Yes, I suspect that people will be a little bit more aggressive in kind of figuring out how bad things can happen. But this shooter, I have no doubt, was going after Charlie Kirk because he was Charlie Kirk, because his voice was so expansive and so huge, and he had such a huge influence over Americans and was really gaining popularity, especially among the youth vote. He was so influential that I think he had a very major part, at least among the young vote, in the recent 2024 election. And it's precisely because Charlie Kirk gave such a voice to the openness of conservatism, had made it seem so palatable and so easy and accessible, and just gave permission for people to be conservative and to enjoy conservatism, to love America and to express love of America and God and Christianity and Judaism and Israel, for that matter. That's why he was killed. So unfortunately, the more successful you are, the more you are able to influence people around you, the more you need security, because there's a lot of people that just simply want to silence you. And that's what happened here.
To your point, we have seen President Trump repeatedly praise Charlie for his role in getting that youth vote, as you mentioned. But Barak, Lurie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and God bless.
President Trump says investigators are making big progress on finding Charlie Kirk's killer. He also urges the nation to stay brave and strong on the anniversary of 9/11, an event that unites Americans across parties. Joining us now live is NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao. Good evening, Iris. What is the latest from the president tonight?
Good evening to you as well, Tiff. So President Trump just spoke to us before leaving the White House for New York tonight, and he says investigators are making big progress on finding the person who shot and killed Charlie Kirk just yesterday. He asked that he has an indication himself about what's the motivation behind the assassination, but for now won't share it with the public until later. Here's what he told us. Watch.
He's an animal, total animal. And hopefully they'll have him and they'll get him. What he did is disgraceful. Charlie Kirk was a great person, a great man, great in every way, especially with youth.
Earlier today, the president talked to Charlie Kirk's family and his wife and the mother of Charlie Kirk's 2 children. President Trump says she's absolutely devastated. And meanwhile, when asked about his own security, President Trump says he's not concerned about himself, but it's more worried about the country. And this morning, when attending a memorial service at the Pentagon for 9/11, he also honored Charlie Kirk by announcing that he will be giving him a Presidential Medal of Freedom right now. Watch.
We miss him greatly, yet I have no doubt that Charlie's voice and the courage he put into the hearts of countless people, especially young people, will live on.
We know that you have heard the Lord's words. Well done, good and faithful servant. Like those on 9/11, he will never be forgotten.
And on another note, President Trump in a video last night is also vowing to crack down on political violence and the organizations that he says are supporting it. And as leaders on both sides of the aisle are still condemning the latest assassination against Charlie Kirk and urging for temperatures to come down, President Trump tonight called on his supporters to respond non-violently, an approach that he says Charlie Kirk was advocating for. Tiff.
And Iris, tell us more about the president's speech at the 9/11 ceremony this morning. What was his message to Americans?
Sure. So this morning, President Trump, the First Lady, as well as the Defense Secretary, now the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth, all attended this memorial ceremony at the Pentagon. And President Trump was urging the country to stay brave amid challenges. Watch.
In America, we take blows, but we never buckle. We bleed, but we do not bow. And we defy the fear, endure the flames, and emerge from the crucible of every hardship stronger, prouder, and greater than ever before.
Just this month, President Trump renamed the Department of Defense to Department of War, and today he sends this message to anyone who's thinking about hurting the United States. Watch.
If you attack the United States of America, we will hunt you down and we will find you. We'll go all over this sometimes magnificent earth. That's why we named the former Department of Defense the Department of War.
And later tonight, President Trump in New York will attend a Yankees game where there will be pre-game ceremonies to honor the victims and heroes of 9/11. Organizers say there will be heavy security. Back to you, Tiff.
All right, Iris, thanks for those updates. And today, the nation looks back 24 years ago to when al-Qaeda terrorists hijacked planes in a heinous terrorist attack on the U.S., 9/11. We hear personal accounts from survivors and Americans who were impacted. NTD's national correspondent Kevin Hogan brings us this report from Lower Manhattan, where the memorial service took place.
9/11 impacted so many Americans. Mixed emotions surround the tragedy, but many share one thing in common: knowing exactly where they were when it happened.
I was living in Pittsburgh, and I was working, and work got interrupted. We all watched it, and shocked, and it's indescribable. It's a day you'll never forget.
A service member in the Army recounts that fateful day. He was working in the Pentagon when news came that the planes hit the World Trade Center towers. And once the plane hit the Pentagon, he and his colleagues knew they had to evacuate. He was able to keep his composure despite the chaos.
In the Army, it's like that's what you do. You hold yourself, you try to understand what's the best way to function, and you just function. And I think that everybody were in kind of a shock. It wasn't something that was expected. It was out of the blue. And we were just getting through the day and trying to understand what's the best usage with our capabilities, and that's it. There was nothing much we can do. You know, if you don't have a formal position in a crisis situation, just try to stay out of the way and help in the ways that you can, and try to understand what's going on, what happened.
The day's memorial included a wreath-laying ceremony at the New York City Fire Museum's memorial for the 343 FDNY firefighters who lost their lives on September 11, 2001. That number has grown by more than 400 due to illnesses related to the attacks. FDNY chaplain Fred Pellegrini delivers the invocation.
Good and gracious God, on this 24th annual remembrance of the World Trade Center attacks, we ask you to preserve in us the memory of those 343 we lost 24 years ago today. Let their memory, their service, their generosity, and their sacrifice be a lasting blessing.
24 years on, some New Yorkers are hopeful, seeing that the city has rebuilt. It survived COVID, and that the city's roaring back to life and people are coming back to New York City. But for others, the trauma of that day still lingers. Here's what an assistant security director at a nearby YMCA told me.
I'm gonna get dressed, I'm gonna go to work, and if this is a dream, I'll wake up, right? So I got dressed, I went to work. My sister calls me crying. She says to me, I had tickets to Windows of the World. She said I was seeing bodies coming. And I said, sis, please go somewhere safe. Go somewhere safe. Go home, go home, go home. Please stop looking at them. Just go home.
People who came to the city to be part of the commemoration said they're hopeful that people will remember this and that it paves the way for a better future. Kevin Hogan, NTD News.
And we'll be right back with more coverage on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer, engaging in respectful debate and finding our disagreements for things that Charlie Kirk said he believed to be important for the country. He spent years traveling to schools and holding public forums, often engaging on tough topics with America's youth. Joining us now to discuss his legacy is Carla Sands. She's the chair of America First Policy Institute's Foreign Policy Initiative. She's also the former U.S. ambassador to the Kingdom of Denmark. Ambassador Sands, thank you so much for joining us tonight. Now, as we remember Charlie Kirk and his legacy, talk to us about his role in engaging in dialogue with America's youth.
Yeah, it's such a tragic moment for the United States. He was certainly a figure that was larger than life. I knew Charlie since he was about 19. And to see him grow into this fine man, a leader in certainly on the conservative side, but I think a lot of students appreciated that he brought light where there was darkness. He brought truth where there was falsehood. He had common sense, and he was so articulate and knew the scriptures so well that he could talk about today's activities and then relate it to the Bible. And people really appreciated that. We have lost a giant in America, even though he was only 31 years old.
And expanding on that, Charlie was an amazing figurehead and champion of free speech. To quote Charlie, he said, When people stop talking, that's when you get violence. That is when civil war happens. How should Americans engage in civil discourse following his assassination?
Well, I think he was right. We need to be able to debate ideas. And it seems like on the left, they want to shut down debate and not have open dialogue. They want to silence critics. And that's why the First Amendment and freedom of speech is so important. I think it's the number one thing we have to protect. President Trump and his administration is working hard to protect the First Amendment. This is an attack on the younger generation. Now, what are they going to do about it? They need to have resolve and strength. And I hope that this brings 1,000 Charlie Kirks, young men who will step into the breach and lead with common sense, with truth, and engage young people. Young people are looking for direction. And if all they learn is leftist ideas, that's all they'll know. So once they hear the ideas that with truth, conservative ideas, it's so attractive and appealing because it speaks to our spirit and our soul. The ideas that are in our Constitution that our founders brought with us with their faith. Charlie was also so proud that he had a hand in J.D. Vance being chosen as the vice presidential candidate. He was engaged with all kinds of people, from children who just wanted to do what he had done, 12-year-old or 14-year-old young men and women who wanted to serve and step up and talk to their peers, to senators and, of course, presidents and kings. So Charlie was a unique man, but I say we need more Charlie Kirks, and let's let his ideas live and grow, because it's only to the good for our country that we have this open ideas. We can see what's happening in the UK, for instance, with the attempt to silence free speech and jailing people for saying things on social media or even in the streets, even praying silently in their own heads.
And as you mentioned, Charlie was deeply religious, often quoting scripture from memory. President Trump saying in his video message to the nation last night, quote, "Today, because of this heinous act, Charlie's voice has become bigger and grander than ever before, and it's not even close. May God bless his memory, may God watch over his family, and may God bless the United States of America." What is the best way to honor Charlie's legacy, no matter which side of the aisle people might be on?
Well, I think having the open dialogue, talking peacefully to your peers, or speaking about things that are important to you, whether it's going in front of a school board hearing to talk about what your children are learning, or reaching out to an elected official, stating what your opinion is and encouraging them to do the right thing. There are so many ways everyone can affect the conversation, talking to people and not being afraid. And asking questions is really a wonderful opener, to just ask a question. You saw so many times Charlie would say, "Ask me a question. And if you disagree with me, go to the front of the line and ask." And then he would find something about that person that was lovable or lovely, and he would find it and talk about it and make an attempt to make a relationship with that person in those minutes that he spoke with them. I see some of that in Vivek Ramaswamy. He's not afraid to talk about ideas. So if our young people will not be cowed by the left who's attempting to silence us, there's a great scripture and it says, "Be not afraid." Don't be afraid. Yes, we take precautions, but we must have dialogue in our country. Otherwise, we can't have our constitutional republic. It is essential to be able to debate ideas. And I hope that the Senate and the House get back to the debate that they used to do decades ago. That's a normal order of business. It's important that we hear ideas, and that's how people can judge and vote well.
And digging into that, Charlie's nonprofit organization is called Turning Point USA, and many do feel that the country is at a turning point right now. What would you like to hear from political leaders, especially on the left, that could actually help break through what feels like a very uncompromising political climate and shift things in a better direction?
You know, Tiffany, I think that the number one thing that politicians could do, elected leaders, would be to denounce the violence. If Antifa or some of these violent black bloc type people attack a police station, a court, a person, that they denounce it vocally and then they press charges in their region. If they're the mayor or the governor, they make sure that they have a hearing, a trial, and consequences. They need to go to jail to end the scourge of the leftist bad behavior. And when it comes to the trans violence that's happening, I don't know if that's connected with Charlie's killer or not. I don't know that. But that must be stopped and it must be punished hard. When threats are made, they should be taken seriously, and the FBI or the local police should get involved. But there have to be consequences on both sides of the aisle equally, not only for one side and not the other. And we really saw that in the violent riots of 2020 that burned so many businesses across the country, and the violence against people where people were killed, even people in uniform. We did not see consequences. We must see consequences. And it must also come from the Democrats. If they will stand up like they did just a few decades ago and stand for law and order, for equal justice under the law, then I think our country will be on a better footing. And I think the person that can really bring us together is President Trump. If the elected leaders and on both sides will work with him, and he calls himself the law and order president, and we can see by his actions that he is. As long as it's constitutional and it's according to the rule of law, let's hold people accountable for their actions, and let's get back to an America that works together. I hope that this tragedy brings great things. Oftentimes they do. It is a tragic moment. I'm personally mourning, and so many of his friends are right now, especially young people. But this is a moment that can galvanize us, much like the terrible wound of 9/11 did. Our country pulled together. So rather than hateful rhetoric around the political assassination of a great American, Charlie Kirk, let's come together. And if I hear that from Democrat politicians, I'll know that the tide is turning. And I really do hope that I hear that.
Well, Ambassador Carla Sands, thank you so much, as always, for joining us.
Thanks, Tiffany.
And the impact of Charlie Kirk's assassination is being felt across the world. World leaders are reacting to the fatal shooting. NTD's international correspondent Malcolm Hudson brings us more.
Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni posted on X, calling the news of Charlie Kirk's death shocking. Meloni called the assassination a gruesome murder, a deep wound for democracy and for those who believe in freedom. She also sent her condolences to Kirk's family, his loved ones and the American conservative community. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu also weighed in on social media, saying Charlie Kirk was murdered for speaking truth and defending freedom, a lion-hearted friend of Israel. He fought the lies and stood tall for Judeo-Christian civilization. Netanyahu said Kirk's boundless pride in America and his belief in free speech will leave a lasting impact. Irish Deputy Premier Simon Harris said he was horrified upon hearing the news and said political violence is never acceptable.
It's very easy for people to condemn violence, political violence, threats of political violence when it's against somebody that they agree with. It's actually more important that it's condemned when that violence is carried out against somebody whom you may have different views.
A member of European Parliament said Kirk's murder shocked the world and sought to hold a minute of silence in his honour, but was not allowed to.
We must strongly condemn political violence and rhetoric that incites violence. Please stand with me in reflection and prayer in his honour, and I yield the rest of my time for a moment of silence.
Well, we have discussed this, and you know that the European Parliament President said no to a minute of silence.
Following her statement, many members of European Parliament began shouting and banging their desks. Barley reiterated that it was the European Parliament President's decision not to hold a minute of silence, which she would stick to. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer posted his condolences to Kirk's family and friends on X. Starmer added, quote, "We must all be free to debate openly and freely without fear. There can be no justification for political violence." His Home Secretary Yvette Cooper added, "Political violence has no place in our societies." Reform UK party leader Nigel Farage said Kirk's influence was not just large in America, but had a growing presence in Britain.
Especially after he spoke at the Oxford Union last month. I absolutely believe in free speech, but we all understand there are limits to free speech. Incitement, constant personal vilification. I think it's incumbent upon all of us, whichever side of the divide we're on, however passionately we feel, to behave with personal responsibility, and I mourn the loss of my friend.
Malcolm Hudson, NTD News.
A Brazilian court has convicted former President Jair Bolsonaro of being part of a criminal organization that's over an alleged plotting of a coup after the last presidential election. The presumptive ruling by Brazil's Supreme Court makes Bolsonaro the first former president in the country's history to be convicted for attacking democracy. But the verdict was not unanimous. One justice broke with his peers by acquitting the former president of all charges. That vote could open a path to challenges to the ruling. This could bring the trial's conclusion closer to the run-up of the 2026 presidential elections. Bolsonaro has repeatedly said he is a candidate despite being barred from running for office due to the charges against him. He's accused of leading an attempt to stage a coup to overturn the 2022 election. The alleged coup attempt happened on January 8, 2023, and was similar to the January 6 protests in D.C. And we'll be right back with more coverage on the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Stay with us. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Charlie Kirk was killed at an event while speaking to hundreds of his supporters. 17-year-old Katie Bell was in that crowd when the shot ran out. She joins us now live to tell her story of what happened yesterday. Katie, thank you so much for being here. I can't imagine how traumatizing this must be, so we appreciate you telling your story today. First, tell us a bit how you heard about Charlie Kirk and why you decided to go to yesterday's event.
Yeah, thank you for having me. So the first time I ever heard about Charlie Kirk was actually last month, and it was from some of my friends at Speech and Debate in my Speech and Debate League, and they all really liked listening to him, and they're all very politically active, and so I decided that the next event I had a chance to go to, I would go to, and it ended up being the Charlie Kirk event at UVU.
And how did you get to the event? What was the atmosphere like when you got there?
So I was intending on going a lot earlier, 3 hours earlier to be exact. My class was in the area that ended at 9, and I was going to go over there as soon as possible to secure a front row seat. But I made a split-second decision, and I decided to go home instead, and I'm really glad I did. But my friend called me up and said that he was there, and it would probably be better for me to have my mom drive me and drop me off, and so I asked her to do that, and she did. And when I got there, it was really overwhelming. There was a lot of people, but I was really excited to see him speak for the first time.
You mentioned it sounds like it's quite crowded. You mentioned being a bit overwhelmed. Did you have to go through any kind of line or security checkpoint?
No, there was a bunch of people flooding in through these doors, and I asked a college student nearby where to go to get to the courtyard, and she said to walk through these doors and then across a hallway and then through these other doors, and that's what I did. I thought that they would have us check tickets because I got one online for free the night before, but they didn't.
And then walk us through the moment leading up to the shot.
So I was standing in the very back, not even on the grassy steps. And then some more of my friends showed up a little bit later. They were more my height, and none of us could see. And the microphones were kind of quiet, so we couldn't really hear. So we pushed our way to the nearest step, which happened to be the back step, so the back grassy step. And we were standing there taking turns, peeking through this alignment between people's heads to see Charlie speak. And we decided to take a selfie to send to our moms. And right after, not even a second after we took the picture, we heard a gunshot and someone yelled, "Everybody get down." And so I pulled my friends to the ground and we all hit the ground really hard. Someone sat on top of my head. It was all really overwhelming. And I was just sitting there wondering if the person was going to start firing into the crowd. And then I hear one of my friends, Joshua, yell, "Everybody run, 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 go, go, go." And so I jumped up the step and ran out of the courtyard into the hallway as fast as I could.
Now, I can't imagine the chaos there, but if you will walk us through what was going through your mind at that moment.
At the moment that I dropped down, I thought I was going to die. My whole life was flashing before my eyes, and I realized that I wasn't that old and I hadn't done all that I wanted to do. And I still wanted to have a family, and I thought I was going to accomplish such great things. And I was just really praying so hard that I wouldn't be taken and that my friends would be spared. And as we were running and the chaos and everyone was crying, I was just so shocked because this is something that happens in movies or you read about in books. I never thought it would happen to me.
And what happened after the gunshot? How did you get to safety?
As I mentioned, I just jumped up and I looked up and one of my friends helped me up the step because I was wearing a dress, and I ran as hard as I could. And when I entered the doors to the hallway, one of my friends kind of put their hands on my back and just guided me to a place where we'd all be safe. And we tried to gather everyone in our group. And I looked up and my friend that I mentioned, Joshua, he said, he's dead, he's gone.
Now, I know it's only been one day, but how has yesterday's events affected you? What about your friends who were also there with you?
It's been really hard. We all got together at someone's house after to try and process and talk about it. But as you mentioned, I'm 17. Lots of my friends were younger than me. I am a teacher's assistant for a speech and debate class. And one of my students, she was just barely 14. And she was there at the event with us and experienced the same things I experienced. And lots of my friends watched him pass away. And it's just really shocking, really hard. Lots of talking to our parents and trying to process it.
And speaking of processing, what do you hope fellow Americans can take away from this tragedy?
To speak up like Charlie Kirk did, and to defend the values that he did, like civil discourse amongst people, even if they disagree with you. And I know it's scary, and I know you might be scared. I was a little bit. This is my first political rally, and I was wondering if I ever wanted to speak up again. But I realized what Charlie would have really wanted was for me to speak up and for us to make this world a better place and stand up for people and stand up against people like the shooter.
Well, Katie Bell, thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back with more coverage here on NTD Evening News. Stay tuned. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. A ceremony was held in Pennsylvania today where 40 passengers and crew members were tragically killed when Flight 93 crashed on September 11, 2001. Meanwhile, in South Carolina, a group commemorated the day by waving American flags over a bridge named after a 9/11 patriot. NTD's Jason Perry reports.
What was once a common field is now a field of honor.
On Thursday, a solemn crowd gathered in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, at the site where United Airlines Flight 93 crashed on September 11, 2001. Flight 93 was the fourth and final plane that was hijacked by al-Qaeda terrorists that day. Passengers on the plane had learned of the previous plane crashes, and some decided to fight back against the hijackers. The plane eventually crashed in a field in Pennsylvania, becoming the only plane that did not hit its intended target that day.
Their decision to fight back against the terrorists who had hijacked their plane saved an untold number of lives and preserved the U.S. Capitol, the symbol and center of our democracy. We honor their actions as a truly heroic display of unity, courage, and defiance in the face of tremendous adversity.
Christian Adams.
And the names of the passengers and crew members were read aloud at the ceremony. Meanwhile, at Fort Mill, South Carolina, people waved American flags over Interstate 77, which people have been doing now for over 20 years. The tradition started when a World War II veteran, Leonard Farrington, went to that bridge waving an American flag soon after the attacks on 9/11. His act of patriotism inspired others to join him, and it has continued since that day. Farrington passed away in 2012, and the bridge was officially named after him the following year. On Thursday, one of the men at the bridge, Vernon Samuelson, explained.
On 9/11, the first day, he came out here. His wife didn't know where he was. He stood out here with the flag all day and then went home.
And he added this.
The loss of Charlie Kirk yesterday is also unbelievable. So we'll have to remember him every year as we do 9/11.
Another man shared his experience on 9/11 as well.
Went outside, there was no airplanes flying in the air, and then got the news about what had happened, and it hit you in the heart.
And he added this about why they were at the bridge on 9/11.
Just bring awareness to our younger generation that 24 years ago this happened to our country, and let's not let it happen again, or try not to.
Jason Perry, NTD News.
Thousands of volunteers gathered across the nation today to back hundreds of thousands of meals for families in need. The event is part of the 9/11 National Day of Service, honoring those who were lost. NTD's Christina Corona reports from Los Angeles.
Behind me, hundreds of volunteers are working hard, spending the day packing meals for families in need. It's all part of a National Day of Service honoring September 11 with acts of giving back.
Thousands of volunteers gathered throughout the day at the Frank Hodgkin Memorial Training Center in Los Angeles to package non-perishable meals for people facing food insecurity in Los Angeles. 9/11 Day is a nonprofit founded by David Payne and Jay Winnick to honor lives lost, including Winnick's brother Glenn, a volunteer firefighter killed at the World Trade Center. The group now partners with the LA Regional Food Bank, companies, and government agencies to bring volunteers together to pack millions of meals.
So more than 1,000 volunteers here today over the course of these 5 hours are going to pack more than 400,000 meals.
This year is the 7th annual Los Angeles Meal Pack for 9/11 Day, part of 25 major service projects happening in 24 cities nationwide.
So the volunteers behind us are packing rice, lentils, vegetables, some vitamins that are going into meal kits, and this will be distributed throughout Los Angeles County in the coming days and weeks.
Each volunteer signs up for a 4-hour shift with rotations to cover the day.
The stations are uniform, so everyone has a job at their station. Some are putting the ingredients together, and some are packing the boxes and so forth. And then, of course, the boxes are going out on the truck.
Once packed, the meals are transported to the LA Regional Food Bank, which distributes them to over 600 community and faith-based organizations across Los Angeles County, as well as directly to families, seniors, and children facing hunger. Michael says the Frank Hodgkin Memorial Training Center is a historic building that has stood for many years, and partnering with the City of Los Angeles and other organizations is a key part of this effort.
As we know, the fire and police officials that responded to 9/11, remembering their bravery is really important.
Organizers say that it's about more than just food. It's honoring 9/11, inspiring service and unity nationwide. Reporting from downtown Los Angeles, Christina Corona, NTD News.
And on a day of remembrance and reflection, there are also moments of culture and beauty taking place here in New York. In the town of Chester, young dancers from around the world are gathering to celebrate a traditional art form thousands of years old. NTD's Sherry Ning takes us there.
Here at the Sugarloaf Performing Arts Center, the first rounds of NTD's 11th International Classical Chinese Dance Competition are underway. Marking the start of 4 days of world-class performances, junior male and female contestants, some just 13 years old, took the stage, bringing to life an art form rooted in 5,000 years of tradition. Each contestant performs a short dance routine along with a set of required movements, demonstrating leaps, spins, and classical technique.
On stage, I feel like my heart is beating very fast, but I still did it, and I feel it's sort of worth it because it's an experience that you can never forget.
I've watched the competitions before, and I thought they were all amazing dancers, so I wanted to join too.
Abigail Wong is not just a dancer. She's also on Taiwan's national figure skating team.
I learned classical Chinese dance first, and then figure skating, so dancing helped me.
Among the contestants, some are not of Chinese heritage, but they express equal passion for the beauty and cultural depth of the art.
Classical Chinese dance, it's entwined with the culture, and the culture is 5,000 years old, and there's really a lot of amazing stuff in there. Compared to my Chinese classmates, I might look a bit different because I was brought up with a different culture, so of course I don't have that same bearing, but then I'm still trying to work towards that direction.
Since I was a little kid, I always watched Indian shows, and I was always in awe. They were always flying on stage and having a lot of fun, and it was just an experience that I want to bring to people too.
The young contestants speak of the hardships of practicing the challenging art form, and also of the rewards.
First, I can forbear a lot more pain because of the stretching. Also, I'm more happy in general because dance brings me joy. I don't give up as easily because dance, you fail a lot until you succeed. So it definitely made me a better person. Just dance is great.
Tomorrow, adult competitors will take the stage, showcasing more advanced dance techniques. Semifinals and finals over the weekend will be open to the public and live-streamed on NTD. Stay tuned for our coverage as the competition continues. Reporting from Chester, New York, Sherry Ning, NTD News.
And that's all for today's news. Round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com/live or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.